But this past weekend, we had an absolute, people call it hate rally. I think that's fair. I'm not going to back off on that. But it was a rally for Donald J. Trump and his forthcoming election chances. And it was big. And 18,000 people at Madison Square Garden. Millions and millions watching at home, and the clips shared around the world. So the reach on this is pretty big. And one of the things, of course, to come out of it was Tony Hinchcliffe, comedian, creator, host of a show called Kill Tony, part of the Joe Rogan sphere of comics. And he said a bunch of jokes. I think a lot of folks are focusing on his Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage joke. But I think they're also overlooking a joke about watermelons and his black friend, a joke about equating Travis Kelce to O.J. Simpson and implying that he might hopefully one day murder Taylor Swift. Like that stuff was said as well. Let's not overlook that stuff. But I want to get into the weeds. The big one, of course, was the garbage comment, and I absolutely have a lot of thoughts on it. I absolutely, as a comic, have a lot of thoughts on it. But and speaking from the heart on this, I'll start here because also, and I don't know Tony Hinchcliffe. I've been around him. I know people that know him. I was around him not 3-4 months ago at the Comedy Store. Whether or not he's a shitty comic is for you to decide. I've decided. You decide yourself. He's a successful comic. The last time I was at the Comedy Store that he was there, he showed up, big SUV, entourage of people, maybe some security type people, definitely a lot of people with him. He's a diminutive man. He's in center of it there. He's living his best life with a lot of money that I don't have. He's a successful comic. So none of this is here to take that away from him. But he goes up and brings, at a rally in front of 18,000 people live in attendance, millions and millions watching at home, clips being shared. And he goes up with roast jokes. And there's a lot of hubbub over Jon Stewart going on The Daily Show and the headline saying Jon Stewart defended Hinchcliffe. That's, to me, a strong reading of the full context of Jon's 16 minutes. I'm not afraid to say when I disagree with Jon or that Jon's gotten something wrong. I think he missed it a bit. I think he missed it a little bit. But what has happened for the last few days, and it's Wednesday, so I'm kind of getting here late to the party. It's Wednesday, but this happens a lot where now one of my professions, one of my favorite forms of art, one of my most favorite things to do, is now under the gun, and which is fine. And now there's a lot of takes on it. There's a lot of folks out there with opinions on comedy. A lot of folks are going to give you the rules of comedy. Don't punch down, speak truth to power, all that kind of stuff. And I don't disagree with any of that there. Comedians do circle the wagon a little bit, to borrow a very old, probably outdated term, but we circle up and protect, without a doubt. I think there's a little of Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart, I don't remember last time he's been in the clubs and doing straight up stand. In fact, in that bit he put up on the Daily Show, like he made a joke of his old comedy from 1990. Like I've been a fan of Jon since he looked like that, since short attention span theater, when he was a grinding out New York comic. I don't think he wrote off what Hinchcliffe did. I think he was saying there's a bigger picture at stake there. But I do agree with some people that said maybe he didn't dig it. I think people were expecting that. I do think there's a danger of a little bit of pearl clutching here. Let me explain. I'm not saying that we should be upset at what he said. And you don't have to be Puerto Rican to be upset. You don't have to have someone in your family from Puerto Rico to be upset. You don't have to know someone from Puerto Rico to be upset. You should be upset at what was said. You should also be upset at the other jokes Hinchcliffe said. But to what Stewart was saying, these are roast jokes, and I do think some context matter. If this had leaked out from a roast, I'd be 70% less upset because I've been in roasts. I don't agree with roast style of comedy. It's become a thing, which is part of this conversation. I'm actually pretty good at roasts in the past. Some friends who were around me when we were doing some roasts in 2010 range, everything would tell you some of my best bits and sets might have been a roast. You're buying a ticket to that show. So this is not excusing anything, and I think roast humor is used as a shield to get away with a lot of things outside of roast, maybe even inside roast. But it's a different vibe. I also think this isn't about offense, because there's a lot of things about offense, and a lot of comics, Hinchcliffe included, will take this don't be offended route. I'm not offended by it. I'm offended by it being a kind of a street joke. I'm offended by it being not a great joke and a high concept. But this isn't about offense. This should be about being upset because this was at a political campaign. This wasn't Don Rickles. Everyone's sharing, and this is the stuff that happens. Everyone shares the George Carlin clips. A lot of people understand what Carlin. They share the one with him talking about Andrew Dice Clay on Larry King without mentioning Dice Clay's name, which is a great bit. A lot of people share the Jeselnik clip on Theo Vaughn's show last year or so, talking about how no comics can't just say anything, and going into it, and he's one of the best at this. But we should be upset at how this was not only delivered and said, that how it was received. And that's the problem I have with it as a comic. Comedians' jobs aren't to simply offend in terms of disgust, because offense could come from a lot of things. If you're speaking truth to power, there might be people in power offended. That's okay. We should worry less about being offended. We should worry less about pearl clutching, because it's performative by nature. And there's a lot of performative pearl clutching going around this entire conversation, including today. You got Biden said the garbage thing, this, that. You know, I don't think he's wrong. Should he have said it? He said it. And he tried to, hey, sorry, here's a tweet about it that someone wrote for me. Why are you worried about that? You got Brett Favre even tonight go pearl clutching about the garbage. Favre is one of the world's most renowned pieces of garbage, proven time and time again. Trust me. I know. Trust me, you should know. But let's not worry so much about being offended. Let's not worry about so much like, oh, I can't believe he said that. We should be upset at how it was received, and that's the problem I have with Tony Hinchcliffe's joke more than anything. More than anything. You get up on stage with that power. You get up on the stage outside of a comedy club. Again, when I started this rant here, comedians circle up a bit because we give each other a little bit of room. There is an agreement on stage, right? And I think a lot of comics violate the agreement. And I think there's a lot of bad comics out there. Shocker. There's an industry that's growing, and it's full of a lot of people who just don't know how to do it. People are discovering their voice, or people are in it for the wrong reasons. And a lot of these guys who are very successful like Tony Hinchcliffe, I think got into it for the wrong reasons. They're class clowns that just want to make people laugh. They aren't artists. They aren't true entertainers. They're people who got away with being pricks, and now they found a way to do it well, and they're good at what they do. I've been in a room with some of these folks. I've shared shows with some of these folks years ago, and they were good then, and they're better now at being up on stage and being themselves, but they're getting away with being pricks, and there's nothing to what they're doing. They won't be remembered for any poignant performances. And that includes someone like Jeselnik making jokes. That includes Mark Maron going deep and going wonderfully and political. Mark Maron, thankfully, standing up this week with some great stuff on it. But that's what I love what Mark Maron said so much, because what he said this week was, I don't care. I'm not going to get into the weeds on whether this comic or any particular comic is actually a racist or actually a fascist or actually believe in what they're saying on stage. That's not the point. The point is they are part of it. They are feeding this. And in some cases, probably willingly. In some cases, as I've said before, with the movie punditry world, there's a lot of people I know in the movie punditry world of the last 5 years who love putting their foot in the back door to let all the bad things in, all the isms, all the racism, all the sexism, all the homophobic stuff, all just the problematic stuff. They have no problem putting the foot on the back door to let it all sneak in because they're not really doing it. But they're part of the slide, and they're part of the slide into this garbage world we're in now, and they're rewarded for it. We shouldn't necessarily be overly offended at the joke. We should be upset at the joke. We should be upset at the joke was successful, and we should be upset at a comic like Tony Hinchcliffe. You should be upset at Hinchcliffe for going up on that platform and thinking, these are just jokes. 18,000 people watching you live in Madison Square Garden, an arena that Tony Hinchcliffe sold out with Kill Tony over the summer in an impressive feat, going from the belly room of the Comedy Store to selling out Madison Square Garden. It's hard not to say that's impressive. I don't like how he got there. I don't like the vibe behind it, but I ain't doing that. But to go up on that stage and to use that platform to say that Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage And to come back later, oh, I like Puerto Ricans. I take my vacations there. Who cares? Who cares if you did not believe one syllable of it? You said it, and 18,000 people took it as gospel. 18,000 people took it as affirmation for their beliefs, affirmation for where their vote is going to. 18,000 people, millions more watching at home, and many, many more seeing the clips over and over again are going, yeah, he said it. Finally, it's true. It's true. That's the problem, and that's what we should be upset at. That is the failure of a comedian to realize what he can do and how you're part of this. You're not just doing jokes. I like a fun, silly joke. I have a lot of jokes about pooping my pants or peeing my pants when I was in second grade. I have some sex jokes. I love getting a little dirty. I'll do a roast joke. I have no problem with that. That's why I said if someone said, here's some cell phone footage of what Tony Hinchcliffe said and it was at a roast, I'm not going to stand by it and say it was good, but I'd be like, yeah, okay. Like it or not, that's kind of what happens at a roast. But to do it at Madison Square Garden in a political rally, I forgot to get to it, but a lot of people, they share the Carlin clips, they share the Jeselnik clips, but a lot of people this week, especially on the Republican side, sharing Don Rickles at Reagan's inauguration. Reagan's one of the worst presidents of all time. Reagan's destructive. His history, his legacy is one of pure poison, without a doubt. Victories here and there, sure, great. 8-year administration might have a couple things. Broken clock strikes midnight twice, right? But Rickles in that moment, different time, different era, and different approach. And not all of Rickles' stuff stands up, by the way. Trust me. Love Don Rickles. Rest in peace. Not all of it stands up. Trust me. Go back and watch it. Right? Go back and watch it. And, a lot of things from that era of the 80s on stage does not stand up. But that's maybe to another point, another conversation. This is not understanding the moment we're in and where we're at. And these words matter. Jokes matter. When I get up on stage and I have something to say, I want to make sure. I think people do get easily offended. I do think people have lost the ability to laugh. I sometimes lose the ability to laugh. I'm so in the trenches on Star Wars discussions that if you come at Star Wars with a little bit of a poke, I get defensive. I get angry. If anyone knows me in person, I might start yelling at you. My face gets a little red because I've been so locked in the Star Wars battle, not defending it as storytelling or as material. I've been stuck in the Star Wars world, defending it in the culture war. So I have to sometimes remind myself to, all right, it's okay to maybe make a joke about Ewoks blinking. Like, oh, it doesn't mean you're an alt-right Nazi coming at me. I think we have lost the ability to understand media, to understand humor, to understand the joke. I think we have put our opinions too far ahead sometimes of reason. I can get on that stuff. I can get behind all that. But we have to be aware the moment we're in, the time we're in. And if you're on stage and your job is to offend, you're not doing the job you signed up for. The fact that it's accepted, the fact that Kill Tony can sell out Madison Square Garden is a problem and a signpost of where we are right now. It was a bad joke structurally. In terms of a roast joke, I don't know, maybe it works. It was a bad Hack Street joke. But the moment he said those words in front of 18,000 people at a political rally prior to an election that will change the future, the very survival of many, many people, means it's no longer a joke. It is words with meaning. And as a stand-up comic who has to watch his profession now debated every day on X and Threads and Blue Sky and Instagram, and I got a lot of people who've never stepped on stage telling me the rules of comedy, telling me what you got to, don't punch down, do this, punch up. It's exhausting, which makes me even more upset at someone like Tony Hinchcliffe. I spent 17 years in the public safety sector. Family members are cops. Best friends are cops. I've arrested personally hundreds and hundreds of people. And in many cases, I'd do it again because I think it was needed. A lot of cases I wouldn't because it was harsh and for the love of power. But what started to change for me was I could no longer sit back and just say, well, there's a couple bad ones. Now it's time to get mad at the bad ones and to clean it up. Comedy will never be cleaned up because all you need is a microphone and a stage and 2 people watching. Some cases 1. You can't clean it up. But we can question what's accepted. We can question these kind of comics who are just like so many YouTubers and so many podcasters and so many other entertainers and so many human beings in this world. The ones driving down the freeway with the big banners on the cars and you know which one, who just are getting a lot of places faster, fueled on hate. Let's address that. Let's be upset at that. And for love of God, quit watching these people. Quit supporting these people. It's the end of my rant.